Hi, my name is Greg Withrow. I'm reading the second part of The Lightning and the Sun. What has set the whole world so bitterly against the upholders of ruthless methods, both in government and war, is not so much that these were violent, but that they were frank. Liars hate those who speak the unpleasant truth and who act in accordance with it. The unpleasant truth is that pacifism, nonviolence, and so forth are just rackets in the service of the forces of disintegration. Dishonest tricks to bluff the fools, emasculate the strong, and to set millions of cowards and hypocrites against the few, whose inspired policy, pursued ruthlessly to its logical end, could perhaps even now arrest the decay of man. Non-violence can only exist in a world in which the socio-political order is on the human scale a replica of the eternal order of the cosmos. One cannot have it both ways. Whoever is not for the everlasting forces of light and life is against them. But it is true that the bold minority of men of action who fight against time for Golden Age ideals is bound to become more and more ruthless in its effort to overcome an increasingly well-organized and universal opposition. And thus, day after day, and year after year, and as time goes on, the struggle will be between openly acknowledged, openly accepted violence, and violence dishonestly disguised. The former being put to the service of life's highest purpose on earth, namely, the creation of a perfect or golden age humanity. The latter to that of the enemies of light. All men, inasmuch as they are not liberated from the bondage of time, follow the downward path of history, whether they know it or not, whether they like it or not. They follow the fatal way. They obey their destiny. Man is unhappy because he knows of the world in which he lives and of which he is part is not what it should be. He cannot accept the fact that it is going from bad to worse and be glad. However much he may try, still an invincible yearning for the better remains at the bottom of his heart. The aims of men within time are always selfish aims. For selfishness is the very root of disintegration, and therefore it is a characteristic inseparable from time. One can practically say that the more a person is thoroughly or irremorsably selfish, the more he or she lives in time. Selfishness is manifested in many different ways. It can find expression in the mere lust for personal enjoyment or the miser's insatiable greed for gold. Men in time know only what is their own and what is not, and they love themselves in whatever is theirs. Typical men within time need no justifying ideology in order to act. Their thoroughly selfish attitude is in all its glaring shamelessness far more beautiful than the tendency of the tiny men to slip down the path to perdition while holding on to some noble ends such as liberty, equality. They know what they truly want, and they know what the way to get it, and they do not care what it costs to others or to themselves. And so they act in the ways that gods would act. To possess the awful splendor of the great devastating forces of nature, of the roaring sea rolling out of its bed over the land, of the lava stream burning its way through all obstacles, of the lightning that men used to worship when they still understood what is divine. Naturally, this can be said only of those men whose action exceeds by its very magnitude the limits of what is personal. It is difficult to imagine any mere seeker of physical pleasure or of individual riches attaining such a grim and godlike greatness. Real men in time are blind powers, serving unknowingly the purpose of the cosmos, the divine destroyer, time itself. Him who we adore in the great lightning, far better their frank brutal destructiveness for selfish ends than the silly patchwork of the ordinary, well-meaning people who try to do some good in this fallen world without having the courage to strike and burn and tear. For destruction and creation are forever linked. That is why we adore the lightning as well as the sun. There are also men above time, men who live here and now, in eternity, who have no part to play in the downward rush of history towards disintegration and death, but who behold it from above, as one beholds from a strong and safe bridge the irresistible rush of a waterfall into the abyss. Men who have repudiated the law of violence, that is, the law of time. Of such men, most live a very special life away from the world, a life of which the whole inner discipline, spiritual, moral, and physical, is systematically devised to keep them in constant union with the great reality beyond time, the thing that is, as opposed to the thing that seems. Of those that live above time, some are saviors, others just let things and people go their way, feeling they are not called to intervene in anyone's destiny, and knowing that in the course of centuries all souls that care to be saved will be. The saviors in the worldly sense of the word, who set out to perfect not merely men's souls but men's collective life and government and international relations, are what we call men against time, and they are necessarily violent, although not always physically so. The most distinctive trait of the men above time is perhaps their consistent refusal to use violence even in order to forward the most righteous cause. Not that they are at all squeamish about violence, like the weaklings who compose 90% of mankind. Their action, like that of the sun, lies essentially in their personal radiation of power, beauty, and goodness. If they have any substantial influence at all, it is like that of the sun, an influence from above and afar, characterized by its absolute impartiality. They do nothing to compel others. They know they cannot force the evolution of things. Like the sun, they shine. If the seed is alive, it will ripen sooner or later. Never mind when. Violence would only help to produce an artificial growth, and if the seed be dead, let it be. There will be new seeds, new creations, forever and ever. The people who live in eternity can wait.